Now, you first came to the UK in '96. Give us a little sort of brief synopsis of you're back in Australia, you're there with your family watching Formula One, you're doing a bit of karting.
Yeah.
Where did you get the belief? Was it coming from the family, or were you rattling their cage all the time?
Yeah, like I did some karting in Australia. I was always reasonably tall for my age, so karting was a little bit of a challenge for me in terms of the weight categories, etc. Then I went into cars, and it actually started to come a little bit easier for me, the results. So bit of Formula Ford in Australia, and I was just, mate, it was a total disease for me. I was watching Formula One. I taped the races. I was constantly watching them back. I was getting Autosport magazine down there, which, by the way, I think was still coming on a boat, which arrived 3 weeks after the bloody results happened. So, apart from the top shelf sometimes at newsagents, I was trying to find Autosport in the other shelves. But ultimately, I just had this severe passion, mate, for an addiction for racing overseas, and that was through my father. My dad he loved single-seater racing. He used to hitchhike to go and watch Sir Jack Brabham and Jimmy Clark, all the guys race at Warwick Farm in Australia, which was a few-hour hitchhike for him to go and do that. So I think early on, because touring cars are so big in Australia, he was didn't want me to watch touring. I watched touring cars, obviously, but he said, the best drivers in the world are racing single-seaters. So I think it was just thrust upon me from an early age that that's the journey I want to try and follow. I did come to Europe. I had a test at the end of 95. Sorry, I did the Formula Ford Festival in 95. I finished third in that in my first race in Europe. And then Ralph Furman, who was the Van Diemen, owner at the time and constructor of all those beautiful little Formula Ford cars we used to race. And you raced those two DC, didn't you, mate? The Van Diemens. I came back in 96 and was a factory driver for there. So, but once you leave, mate, and it's actually a line from Mick Doohan, our friend, it's a fucking long way home with your tail between your legs if you get it wrong, so it's really, you got to try and convert. So for me, I knew I had an opportunity. I didn't really want to have too many plan Bs because I wanted to make plan A work. And I did that with Formula Ford with some moderate success and winning the festival at the end of that year. And I never really wanted to go back because I saw that as, like you could say a failure, but I just wanted to make sure I stayed over here and converted that talent I believe that I had.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. You got some great support along the way. Once those initial successes are coming in, what point was it for you that you were going, hold on, this isn't just me sort of laying the foundations. I can see a route to Formula One, because I kind of always felt that racing was a hobby until the point when I was given the test drive at Williams, and that was in the penny drop when I went, actually, I can earn money out of this, and I could be a professional.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think that for me, it was around 97 in the Formula 3 year where I was going from. Even though in Formula Ford I didn't bring much money at all, I had to, the whole budget was £75,000 for, which is a lot of money, but like compared to current terms, it's not a lot of money. Duckham's paid half of my salary, and Yellow Pages in Australia paid the other half with the Aussie peso at the way. By the way, it was 33 bloody p to the dollar back then. So, Australian dollars were not going far in terms of my sponsorship. So, but when I had won the Formula 3 race at Brands Hatch in the fourth race, Norbert Haag rang me up from Mercedes and said, I think there was a weird, talk about sliding doors moments, which you and all of us, EJ and yourself, we've been in this situation where there's just timing in life where I think that Gerhard Berger's father had been ill, or something happened with Gerhard where Alex Wirtz had to replace him in a sports car.
Yeah, he had a sinus.
That's right.
Missed a few races for a sinus operation.
Yeah, and then like Norbert's like, we haven't got Alex Wirtz in the sports car. We need a replacement for Alex Wirtz. And then Norbert rang me and said, do you want to do this race at Nürburgring? And I'm like, with Bernd Schneider, a 1,000K race. I'm like, Norbert, I was only racing Formula Ford 6 months ago. And I said, no. I said, I think that is really going to be a step far from it. But I want to test. I want to show you what I can do. Please let me test the car, which I did test the car. And they took Roberto Moreno, actually, who drove for you, EJ, didn't he? Roberto drove for you. Yeah, so Roberto Moreno did replace Alex Wirtz in that car. So I didn't do that race. So to answer your question, DC, that's when I started to believe I'm now getting a chance, yeah, and people are believing in what I'm doing, and manufacturers, because as we know, manufacturers at that time, as a young driver, that's actually what you need to try, and especially for me, I had no real sponsorship. So I did the test. Mercedes, I was underway with there to start driving for them in the future. But also in your question, DC, you said to Formula One. I still harbored big dreams of that, but sports car was a real segue. Like, shit, actually, it's off-piste here.
Yeah, but sports cars was big business back those days.
It was big, but I thought, shit, with the roof over my head, this is not what I had in mind. Yeah. I still think I've got to get myself back out of this at some point. And it was a brilliant experience, but yeah, that's when I started to believe, okay, this is now getting serious for my career, my momentum, and the belief is starting to get real.
So at what point did the fellow Aussie Paul Stoddart come into your business? He was, always a motorsports fan. He made his money through aviation. I believe he still does. And he obviously saw something in you as well. And it probably helped the fact you were fellow Aussie. So how instrumental was he? And I think it was around your sort of Formula 3000 year that EJ claims that he has some sort of involvement in your...
EJ did. He did, because, through my Mercedes sports car days, that program ran out of puff because we had horrendous accidents in Le Mans. And, and to this day, and I had 2 flips, and we were very lucky. My teammate also flipped. I think to this day, we might not have even had, and Bernd Schneider said this, we might not have even had Lewis Hamilton on the grid, because Mercedes at the time, if a car went into the crowd or we had something really, really tricky happen, Mercedes would have been in the spotlight for...
Like they'd been back in the day.
That's right.
In the 50s at Le Mans, they pulled out a motorsport.
Horrendous accident. And I think that as a manufacturer, that was a tricky... They pulled out of sports cars because we had no real, no fatalities, thank God. But that was interesting. So they contained it within that category. So I was back into unemployed, didn't have a pot to piss in again. I was paid 200,000 German marks to drive for Mercedes, which was, and I had to pay people back from getting me to the situation I was in the junior categories. I was still well behind.
What was that in
God knows, mate. Is that 50 sterling?
Is it really?
For a season?
Yeah.
So I think that, and I might be wrong on that, but it got us going, but it wasn't exactly paying back the big bills that got me into that situation to start with. But I was going to Silverstone to Jordan Grand Prix to train. And when I was unemployed, I would go to the gym, and Eddie would let me go there, and often I was trying to harass him about putting, I want to do some straight line testing in the car. Can I do some aerodynamic work? And it was always tricky for him, obviously, because he had, the people, that was a very commercial role for his drivers. He had his race drivers, but obviously having a test driver, I'd imagine that, and EJ can throw some more light on that. But I didn't have the economic firepower to trouble the scorers with EJ's commercial model. So it was me going to the gym, having a chance. And then one day, I think I even followed bloody EJ out of the factory because he wouldn't answer the freaking phone. Giselle, was it Giselle, EJ, your old PA? Giselle was amazing. Phenomenal. She was so good. She was so good at saying, fuck off. She was brilliant at saying no, Yeah, exactly. She was amazing. So it was like, this is my opportunity. I want to try and get some straight line testing, whatever. EJ said, there's a guy over the road testing today, and his name's Paul Stoddart. Go and see him. Let's have a look at that. And then that was made my career, because without that advice from EJ, I would never have gone to see, because I didn't know Paul Stoddart. I didn't know he was over there. Loves his racing. And Stoddy then believed in me. He put a lot of money in my career instantaneously. Let's have a go. He tested me, of course, which went well. And after that, I'm back in single-seaters. I've got a team. By the way, it was a struggling team that I joined, but I had then good results, and then off we went. So sliding doors, trust and instinct from EJ. I then got an opportunity. The stopwatch went okay. Off we go.